Leadership Unleashed, a place where we explore leadership ideas and dare to question the status quo. We all feel it, coming from every single direction, distractions, beeps, alerts, all types of things that constantly try to steal our attention. Today I'm going to talk about how to reduce some of those distractions and a couple of strategies that you can specifically use today to kind of bucket things into whether you want to deal with them right away or really ultimately to decide what gets your attention, because that's what this game is all about. Every single day there is a new way that somebody is trying to grab your attention, and we all feel it all the time, and it results in stress and burnout and inaction and sometimes even just paralysis because we don't know how to stop it all. So if you can start to manage and start to slowly get a hold on distractions and really get a hold on what you spend your time focused on, you can start to make some headway. So today I'm going to talk about a 3-bucket system. It's very, very simple to start to really get your arms around distractions and how to really start to engineer your life to bring some peace to you. Distractions and time wasters are everywhere. Every single corner we turn, there's something trying to grab our attention, beeping at us, shouting at us, whether it's advertisements on television or on social media accounts, your phone, text, email, you name it. Everything is vying for our attention. The amount of distractions and the consequences to our well-being are increasing every single day. In many ways, these are safety problems if you think about distracted driving and texting or things that can actually have deadly consequences to people. We all understand the consequences of severe distraction in terms of texting and driving, medication errors in healthcare organizations, or when people aren't paying attention, they can make big errors, or we can miss things because there's so many things trying to get our attention all the time. And if we're paying attention to one or two things, we're not paying attention to other things. So dealing with distractions is really an art, and it's an art of setting limits, oftentimes with other people, oftentimes with ourselves, making sure that we figure out how we focus our time on things really matters. At the outset, you have to acknowledge that you're in charge of your time and what you pay attention to. And if you don't manage it, somebody else will. That's often what happens. So what we need to learn is to pay attention to the right things that will move us forward. Paying attention to the wrong things can be overwhelming for sure, and disastrous at worst if we're really not focused where we need to be. A good example: how much attention do you pay to your personal finances? You may have the luxury of needing to pay little attention. Maybe you're independently wealthy and somebody else manages everything for you. And if that's your situation, fantastic. I'm very happy for you. But a lot of us have to actually pay attention to what's going on all the time and know what's coming in and what's going out. Otherwise, if we don't pay attention to our bills, they will demand our attention in the form of late notices and systems being shut off and things like that because we just haven't given the time to them. So we know that those things tend to add up if we don't pay attention to them. Another example is your personal health. You can either pay attention to it and do things to prevent future catastrophic outcomes, or you can ignore it, and then eventually you will become sick and things will come and grab your attention whether you like it or not. So the very first thing you must do is to pay attention to what you're paying attention to. And so how do we do that? I like to start with a very basic framework for anything vying for my attention. And this is a great way for you to decide what to do with something that's coming at you. And it's very basic, and it's a 3-bucket system. Basically, anything that presents itself, you could have 3 choices at least, but 3 basic choices. You can either ignore it, you can delegate it, or you can engage it. Those are kind of the 3 basic things that you can do with anything that is coming at you. Now, ignoring can take many forms. We can use email rules, we can block numbers, we can have closed office hours, we can put do not disturb features on our phone, turning off notifications. These can be both the visual type of notifications that you see, the little red bubbles that come up on your phone, or the audible kind that make noises. I have none of that stuff on my phone because to me, those things are very tempting. They'll grab your attention. The next thing you know, I'm 10 minutes into reading something. The world is working very hard to grab your attention. So reducing ways that electronics specifically and people through electronics can interface with you can have great advantages in reducing distractions. Get rid of all those notifications and noises and visual alerts. Obviously, if you have family members that need to get a hold of you, you can often electronically prioritize them so they'll come through anyway. But if you can get rid of all that background noise and chatter, you're just going to find yourself more focused. Delegating is also a great way to reduce distractions. Finding things that can be taken off your plate and given to other people, either support people or people that are better at doing the thing than you are. If you can automate it and delegate it, that's even better. But oftentimes this involves another person that you have to give a series of tasks to. But you do have to train them and let them know when this thing comes your way, here's what I want you to do with it. Here's the amount of time I want you to spend on it, and let me know if you have problems. That way you can know that things are going on behind the scenes and you don't have to spend a lot of time on it. Delegation is very effective, especially when you have a team of skilled people who deal with particular things all the time, maybe a single project or regular transactions that come through all the time. But again, make sure the delegatee knows what you're asking them to do. A good example of this is things like transactional work. Contracts is one that I think of, routing them through large organizations. There's lots of checks and forms that need to be filled in. And if you can focus that into one person, then you're not constantly being pulled out of your larger work to do those type of things. And it can be really, really effective. You could still have the final check off and make sure that everything was done correctly. But delegating those tasks, those things that cause you to pull away from things that you really need to pay attention to do those is important. Now for the last strategy for dealing with distractions. This one gets a lot more complicated because it makes you make a lot of choices, and that's engagement. So once you've decided what to ignore and you've decided what you can delegate, now you're left with those that you really need to engage in. And this is not as simple as it seems. So you need a strategy within engagement just to understand what you're going to engage with and how much time you're going to give to it. It doesn't mean you treat all things the same. You'll see many time management tools and tricks and ideas out there that can really help you understand how to engage with things once you have decided not to ignore them or delegate them. A long-standing and really effective tool and something that's been used time and time again is what's called the Eisenhower Matrix, or Stephen Covey, if you've heard of him. He was a effectiveness leader in the 90s, and he talked about what was called the time management matrix. It's the same thing. Covey just took it and tweaked it a little bit for his purposes. And it has 4 main quadrants. Those 4 quadrants are essentially ranked into a scale from not urgent to urgent, and then important to not important. And it basically gives you this framework so you can start to plug things into each one of these quadrants and know whether or not you should give your attention to something, or how much time you should give to something, or how much urgency something should demand of you. Essentially, you should bucket items into, like I said, urgent and important, urgent and not important, not urgent, not important, and then those things that are not important and not urgent at all. The goal of the matrix is to spend time doing things that are important, really, really important, especially preventative, but not urgent. So this is where we want to get unstuck in the world, because otherwise we're always stuck in either distractions and time wasters, or we're running around like a chicken with our head cut off because we're working on urgent, important items all the time. And those are those fires that just suck the life out of you. You'll get the most out of dealing with things long-term that are really, really important, like preventative items, but they're not urgent at the exact moment right now. There are things like auto maintenance on your car. You got to change the oil, pay attention to your tire pressure, do those kind of things. They're not urgent, but they are important, and they're preventative oftentimes. Relationship building is one of those. It's important, it's not always urgent, but they're really important long term. So you have to take the time to do it, because that will ultimately start to bear fruit that will keep those more urgent things off of your plate. And they have long-term implications for things you want to accomplish. There'll always be things that come up day in and day out that are important and they're urgent and they're in your face, and you just have to do it right away. These are just the day-to-day fires we all know about, and they pop up out of nowhere, and sometimes despite your best efforts, there's just no way to control them. So you just got to deal with those quickly as possible so you can get back to doing the non-urgent work that's also really important. And slowly, as you continue to chip away at those things that are important and non-urgent, the crises actually start to reduce. And then you're only really dealing with true crises that no one could have anticipated. Email is a place that distractions often rule our world. For me and a lot of you, I know this is a pain point. I had a friend once that was actually so distraught with her email box that she had to go to therapy because it was causing her so much stress. She just couldn't get her arms around it and didn't know how to deal with it. And there was so many messages and CCs and replies all that she would just kind of give up and be paralyzed and wanted an effective strategy to deal with it. Hopefully she found one, but that type of stress and that type of anxiety is present with all of us. So email is a constant feed of information, and it's coming usually one way. And your brain is trying to constantly understand, how do I deal with it? Do I engage it? Do I ignore it? Do I delete it? Do I let it just sit in my inbox because I don't know what to do with it? That's something I do from time to time. And ultimately, I end up just stagnant because I'm not moving it forward. So a general rule of thumb for email, if it takes less than 2 minutes to take care of it, just do it right away. That's the first thing. Like, get it out of your box. Get rid of all those sales ticklers. Get rid of all those things at first that are just, you're not even going to act on. But if it's a less than 2 minute thing and you open it, deal with it, delete it, you're done with it, that's a way to start chipping away at it. And a great way to reduce email distractions is to create folders. So you can create folders within Outlook, which is the system many of us use, and you can create automatic rules where if it's from a certain person or has a certain subject type, that it just drops into a folder, and then you can go look at it when you need to look at it. It doesn't have to be acted on right away. It doesn't fall into that quadrant of urgent and important, but it's something that you may need to look at later during the week, and you can set time aside to do that. But that way you're starting to pull information out of folders and look at it rather than it demanding your attention. A good example of those kind of things that I use rules for are articles, membership updates, different societies that are sending things to me that I'm very interested in, and when I have time and I have a little downtime or focus time, I can go and read the latest article on whatever I'm interested in. But it clogs up my inbox and I need to get it out of there. And again, like I said, if it's a 2 minute read, I may even quickly glance at it and then get rid of it. Otherwise, it goes into a folder and I can deal with it later. And then, of course, I give no attention to items that weren't asked for in the first place. So these are the sales inquiries, things that come out of nowhere that just seems like people are pleading for your attention. I find those really, really distracting, so I just get rid of them as quickly as possible. And they're usually things you can't really make a folder for because they just come out of the ether in a lot of ways. And so I just quickly, at the beginning of the day, just get rid of those right away as quickly as possible. So the Eisenhower matrix, as we've mentioned, is also a great way to deal with your email inbox and decide which things you should deal with right away, what's urgent, what's important, what's not urgent but important, what can be delegated immediately, like I said, and then things you should just get rid of and ignore right off the bat. There are other strategies also to reduce distractions even outside of email. One of those that I like to use is spending time outside of my normal work environment, usually not at home, but like at a coffee shop, or use a different conference room or an office if you can get a hold of a place to just really work in a different place where people aren't expecting you to be. Because this gets you away from the day-to-day distractions, the quick knocks on your door, the phone calls to your desk phone, because you won't have it. You'll be able to control what you're doing. And I like to take my computer, my cell phone, and go somewhere, and I am far more productive in sort of a closed-off environment like that, even in a busy coffee shop, because I don't have all the normal distraction routes coming at me. And it's me and my phone and my project and whatever I'm working on, and I can start to control what my attention is paid to. And you'll find that. You'll feel a sense of positive isolation, so you can start to control what is coming at you and what is not, and you can pay attention to what you want to. One strategy that I like to use is to eliminate every possible notification, visual and audio, on all devices everywhere I go. And I use Do Not Disturb on my phone when I can. Sometimes I'm on call and I can't do that. But turning it off at night so I don't get bothered when I'm trying to rest. Turning it off when I'm busy with a family event. I shut my ringer off. I hardly ever have my actual ringer on my phone on. You can use the haptic buzz if that makes you feel better because you don't want to miss a call. Every once in a while, I would challenge you, try shutting off your cell phone and see what happens. Shut it off for an hour when you get home and just spend time with your family. It's really, really a stress reducer. I love it. Also, another tip is to block time and focus on a very specific task on your calendar. I literally go in and schedule work with myself. So that way I have time to do whatever the thing is that I need to do. Because quite often we get bombarded with all these tasks and things that we need to work on, and we don't make the space to actually work on them. We just go from meeting to meeting to meeting. And with electronic calendaring systems, people can fill in all that blank space if you don't block it. And again, they're starting to take control of your calendar when you let that happen. Take back control. Block out time that is yours to look at data reports, to do research, to work on projects that you need to work on so you can be productive and not be distracted and be disturbed, so you can be focused on what you want to do. Also, it's good to mark yourself as not to be disturbed so people understand that you are focused in your office working on a particular thing. If you happen to have an assistant, you can ask them, look, I'm going to be completely sequestered for this time and I need to work on this thing so I can get it done. Otherwise, I will never get it done and I will feel so stressed that I haven't been able to squeeze it in. Then you're working weekends and evenings and doing other things. Another thing that we need to deal with is other people. Often people will steal your time and they're not even trying to be disingenuous or anything like that. It's just that they're working on an issue and it's their time to work on it, so they're going to come and pop in and distract you while you're trying to do your work. And so it's really important when people do that to set boundaries and just say, look, I got 5 minutes to hear you out and then I got to get back to what I'm working on. Or you can also make rules and say, I don't like to make meetings before 7 a.m. because that's my time to work on whatever. Or I'll put do not disturb on 3 times a week during lunch so I can focus on something and focus on maybe either downtime to try to take a step back or literally just to have that uninterrupted thinking time. But you have to communicate those rules to people both electronically and then tell them when people violate them and say, look, I'm really, really busy and I really need to work on this thing. I can have a few minutes to hear you out, but I got to get back to it. Next time, can you please make an appointment? So it's good to take an opportunity to set that limit, especially have somebody that continuously does it. Doesn't mean that you should block yourself out because we want to be open leaders. We want to have open offices and open doors where people can get access to us. But at the same time, there is that protective time to get your work done. And it's okay to say I'm on the middle of something and I need to be really focused. Let's make an appointment if this is going to take more than a minute or two. Your phone uses a lot of apps to grab your attention. And I've talked about this already, but there's beeps and there's vibrations and there's things that pop up all over the place. One thing I like to do, especially if it's an app that I may not want to see, like on the weekend, for example, if I don't want to see a work email bubble on my phone, first I recommend taking it off. But if you can't, I move all those applications to the very last page on my phone. So I would have to intentionally swipe a couple times over through my apps to actually see that there's a bunch of emails waiting for me, for example. That way they're just not right there in your face with these constant kind of updates coming at you. It's just another way to blind yourself because our brains are really good at grabbing a hold of the shiny thing that is coming at us, and the little bubbles with the how many emails you have unread is one of those that will grab your attention. One other thing that I love to do is anytime I'm signing up for a new app, a new website, or anything, they often will ask you if you want notifications pushed to you. And I'll tell you what, I say no to every single one of them. And in my mind, that's because if I want something from the particular app, I'm going to go and grab it. And that way I'm in control rather than the app. Because if you have enough of these things on your phone's just going to be buzzing and beeping and doing all kinds of things nonstop. And you're going to go crazy trying to figure out what you need to pay attention to. To the extent possible, make sure that all your systems in your life are like that they're pull systems where you will go grab information from an app, from a website, rather than having them dump it to you. There may be an app where it's useful and you want to see some news article or something every morning when they come out. I, again, don't do that. But if you really want to take control, you got to create a pull system where you are going and pulling information from those websites rather than letting them push things to you, because it will be nonstop. And you'll have just a jamboree of notifications. Some organizations have actually made physical props so people can know when other people in an open office environment, for example, are available. And you'll see them. They'll have a little green and red sort of cylinder, and when they flip it to the green side up, you're available to be talked to, and when they flip it to the red side up, it means do not disturb. It's just a way to control distractions. And so we can see that ever present everywhere in our world, we are working really to not be distracted all the time. There are many other tips and tricks and systems that you can develop on your own. These are just a few that could be adapted and modified to your particular circumstance. But again, distractions are just so hard and so counterproductive for a lot of us. There are many other tips and tricks and systems that you can develop on your own with the primary goal of reducing distractions. And take what I've given you today and modify it and turn it any which way you can to make it work for you, because there's a lot of different ways you can apply these basic principles to your daily work life to try to become a less distracted person and more effective and start to bring calmness and control in a sense of maybe the world isn't controlling you. Maybe you're controlling your world a little more than you were yesterday. So again, it's not easy, but we started with a framework. Start with ignoring it, delegate it, or engagement. And within engagement, figuring out how much you want to really engage something. Is it urgent? Is it important? Is it a right away? Or is it something long-term that I need to work on? Or do I just need to completely take it off my plate? So be so careful about what you engage in, because it's your time that's at stake here. And what you use your time towards is really what you're prioritizing. And that is the stuff that's going to get done or not get done. So don't let other people or notifications or beeps or things like that take your time away. You take control of your day, get less stressed, get more productive, and use your time wisely.